So, this episode is part of a 10-ish message series commemorating the 10-year anniversary of when I first started my business back in the spring of 2013. Each message features a lesson or a story or something worth noting, a theme worth anchoring in from that particular year. Some are more life focused, some are more business focused, some cover lots of time, some cover very specific moments of time, and there's absolutely crossover because time travel is a thing in this retrospective mode where hindsight's 2023. Know that I would genuinely love to hear your feedback, any insights or questions that come up as you're listening. And I'm absolutely open to requests for future episodes to go deeper on any specifics that you'd love to hear more about. Just take a screenshot and tag me at Nikki Elledge Brown as you're listening, or hit the link in the comment box in the show notes and let me know. All right, here we go. 2015 was a framer of a year. Like if I could just print it out and stick it on the fridge. I actually do. I have a lot of printed out photos from 2015 because I was pregnant. My husband was deployed. We had very interesting media visibility in the year 2015. It was absolutely a highlight reel, R-E-E-L, even though I know the highlight reel, R-E-A-L, absolutely existed. Hashtag both sides. Nothing's missing, in the words of John DeMartini. I know that. I know that I was very challenged by it. I know that it was very hard because my husband was deployed and I was solo momming my young 3 to 4-year-old son at the time while pregnant and running my business and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, on the surface and really throughout, it was a pretty great year. And that's why the theme of 2015 is Lucky Batch. So two sides to this. The luckiness because of, actually both can be inspired by you, Denise, if you're listening to this. Denise DT, creator, she's written a few books, one of which is called Lucky Bitch. One is Get Rich Lucky Bitch, and then Chill and Prosper as well. And she's a friend of mine and has been a guest on the Naptime Empires podcast, but I first met her through purchasing her money boot camp in 2014. And this is when I had, I was like a year and some change into my business, obviously making more money than I had ever made or dreamt possible. And I was like, how can I upgrade my mindset? I was looking for opportunities to expand what I knew could be possible for us. I was also, at the time, I had a more traditional Christian faith that I had grown up in the Methodist church and whatever. My faith has since expanded and unboxed and repackaged, and that's a totally different conversation. But at the time I was like, how can I reconcile my faith with manifesting and law of attraction and all of these things? And so I was in total sponge mode, just learning about upgrades and visualizing and journaling and all of these things, which actually is totally how I started my business anyway, right? Because I had chosen faith and I was doing a devotional and I was journaling out those divine breadcrumbs. Anyway, that's a different episode. But I was really into intentionally declaring and choosing, like, here's what I want. I'm naming it, I'm claiming it, this is my desire, I'm going to take action towards it. There's that quote that there's controversy as to, was it Seneca, whoever actually said it, but the day you decide to do it is your lucky day. And I would say that was the theme that led to so much, air quotes, luck for me in 2015. From getting pregnant to getting tremendous visibility for my business. We even won, there's a raffle for the first hug for a homecoming on the pier for the families. And we won the first hug raffle. Jeremy got promoted. We got a house at just the right time. I wrapped the year trying to manifest a VBAC because Bryson, my first, had been a C-section, and I was really interested in trying to go for a VBAC at the Army hospital where I was giving birth. And it just all seemed to be firing on all cylinders. The other side of that, of course, is the fact that my husband was going to be deployed for several months, but he had been gone for weeks and weeks at a time in preparation for this deployment. I had this heavy pit in my stomach, like a storm cloud that was just looming over us and wouldn't let up. Because if you're a military family, or if you know, or you have anyone who's traveling and leaving for long periods of time, it's just the lead up to it is really the hardest part. There are actually a lot of psychological studies, and I remember one of them was talking about how you'll create psychological distance before your loved one's leaving, because it's just easier if you could just be like, oh, just go. Like, you start to get kind of short with each other because it just makes it easier to just rip the Band-Aid, So it was hard leading up to that because my husband and my son were really close. I have a whole another podcast called The Gift of Mom Guilt on the Naptime Empires that I'll link into the show notes about how we were managing that. Because truly, for a while, I couldn't even talk about it without crying. And of course, I wasn't going to share that on the internet. Hey, my husband's gone for several months and here we are alone, in Hawaii. I wasn't going to share that. So it was under the surface, literally and figuratively, because he was on a submarine below sea level, it was very under the surface. And that was the real REAL that was anchoring in, again, another Navy analogy, not intended, but not deleted. That was the undercurrent for the entire year for us for 2015. And so my business, I just went all in because it was keeping me company while he was gone. It was helping me focus. It was helping me stay connected socially. I mean, this was a huge reason why my business was booming in these early years, because my husband was gone. So I had a void of social connection while I'm raising my kids and solo in my house at night, and the rest of the world is asleep. And that was a huge reason why actually I had so much energy to pour into my business. So I find that an interesting thing to note. Again, with this 2023 hindsight, it's like looking at the life circumstances that were going on. It was a huge challenge, but also that's why I'm so thankful that I had my business to fill that void. And then also to fill the bank account. This was a huge part of why I was motivated in my business, because I was like, I don't want to do this again. I do not want to do this again. I do not want to have another 6-7+ month deployment where we're separated and it's not on our terms. And so I knew once I could make this much money in my business, I was like, I got to make $1 million so that it makes sense for us to leave active duty whenever we actually choose to, instead of feeling like this is just the logical next step and we just stay in because we feel like we don't have any other options. And that was a huge driving force. And sometimes current me forgets that I am now living the life that I was dreaming of. I was working so hard for at the time, but I was having a lot of fun while I was doing it. So I got to say, the lucky batch stuff comes in because I did that first and second webinar promotion of the course about copy earlier in the year because it was the first anniversary. The first webinar was a flop in terms of sales. It was fun. It was great. And there was great feedback, but nobody actually bought. And I have a great blog post on the before and after of what I did during the first one that made 0 sales. And then a week later, one made, I think, 20 sales for my next webinar, much improved. And so I had that going on. And then I was like, I'm ready to do more interviews. I had been saying thank you, but no thank you to requests for interviews. But I was like ready to turn up the visibility. And the funniest part of that was over the summer, we were in Texas and visiting family because Jeremy was gone and we wanted to see everybody. Plus I was pregnant. So we had a little baby sprinkle while I was here. And we're visiting my great aunt Ruby. And my phone starts blowing up with friends being like, I just saw you on Orange is the New Black. And I'm like, what? Because I've still never seen an episode of Orange is the New Black. I'm sure I would love it because so many of my friends do, but I've never watched an episode. But they were telling me that a clip from this reality TV show called Buying Hawaii that we had filmed in 2013 was featured on Orange is the New Black. Not featured, but like splashed on the screen for less than 2 seconds. And I'm like, okay. I'm just trying to visualize it. And so we get back to the hotel where we were staying, and I asked my mom if I can borrow her iPad. And I go search up. It's season 3, episode 4, about midway through. And the characters are in the rec room, and there's a TV in the background. And sure enough, it just blows my mind. I had literally just declared to the universe and to my email list and Facebook page, I'm ready to do more interviews. I'm ready to be more visible. And then literally out of all of the TV shows that could have been playing, even out of this TV show, out of all of the episodes that could have been playing, or all of the split seconds in this episode that they played this flash from our montage introducing us at the beginning of the show, which we were high school sweethearts, prom king and queen. So there's a picture of our high school prom. There's a picture of our wedding cake smush on our wedding night. And then there's a picture of me doing an interview, and it's not just my face. It literally has my whole Nikki Elledge Brown on the banner. Like, what is happening? Orange is the New Black. You got to go find it. If you have Netflix, you got to find it. Let me know when you do, and I'll put a link to it. But it was just so ridiculous. I also did a podcast tour of big name podcasts, Amy Porterfield's podcast and John Lee Dumas's podcast, which I've been on a couple times since, and Pat Flynn's podcast. And it was just so much growth, literal and figurative, because I'm also growing this human, which couldn't even tell my husband that I was pregnant till I was like 9 weeks along, because he left and they went straight out on mission, and I found out I was pregnant while he was gone. So every time he was coming up to a port, we're FaceTiming and it's like, we're pregnant. It's a boy. Here's the 20-month scan. Congrats on your promotion. We're moving the weekend you get back. There was always some kind of fun news. It's funny because even years later, when we bought this house that I'm recording in right now, he was under the sea whenever I bought the house. So now we can't have any more major life events because he doesn't go under the sea anymore. So yeah, that tradition is wrapped up. Anyway, like I said, we won our first hug lottery. We had like a literal red carpet moment when he got home from deployment, because we got to go and have the first hug. And then there was a sweet baby that had been born actually while they were gone that got to go and have a special moment. And then that ended up going viral, like the actual U.S. Department of Defense and the Navy. I say viral, not like viral, but just in terms of the Navy chain of command and social media. One of the pictures is rather unfortunate. It looks like I'm naked. I guess I was wearing a strapless dress. But it was just the visibility. I'm telling you, it was so weird, but then also not weird. Like nothing was surprising us at a certain point. So that's the lucky stuff that I'm talking about. And I also want to speak a bit to the batching, because I was a batching fool. From my second trimester on, I was all about preparing and trying to create whatever I could create so that I could show up consistently and just double down. And little did I know what was coming in 2016, and we'll get there next. But I recorded like 13 videos to send out every week. It was my personal trimester of awesome because I had so much energy in that second trimester. And then I even re-recorded all the videos for prep school, which I was telling you about in 2014, laptopless. I re-recorded all 20 of those videos in one day when I was like 30 weeks pregnant, right before Jeremy got home. I was just on creative fire. And of course, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I was pregnant. There's definitely a special kind of energy, or at least for me, and I'm very thankful that the pregnancies that, went all the way for me, I usually felt pretty good, pretty normal. Once I made it through that first trimester of really more the mental stuff was the hardest for me in the first trimester. But I was just a creating fool and ended the year with a hugely successful promotion. I was just trying to go into labor, and I talk about this in the Profitable Priorities episode of Naptime Empires, but I was just trying to go into labor. I was trying to manifest that VBAC and snuggle my baby at the Christmas tree. I was so sad because he made me wait, which is totally fine. It's funny because now I'm always telling him to slow down, but at this point I was trying to get him to speed up and be here before Christmas, and he waited till almost New Year's Eve to make his appearance. But it was such a beautiful year. Like I said, I love 2015. I know that it was also really hard, but it was also really awesome. And I wanted to give it an anchor point here. Maybe pun not intended. I know I've said that a lot, but I wanted to celebrate those lucky batch vibes of 2015, because they were key and foundational for so many things. Obviously for our family, bringing in Deacon into the world, we wouldn't be complete without him. But then also foundational for my business and really maximizing what I was working with at the time, a course about copy, affiliates, and the momentum. There was so much momentum. I was not at all prepared for the ups and downs that were going to follow in the next year. I thought I had it all figured out, which was really cute. But in 2016, really in that fourth trimester, everything changed, and it changed pretty quickly. And that's what we'll talk about next. 2016, Vegas with a baby. I'll meet you there. Okay, technically that was the end of the episode, but since you're still here, 1, I'd love to thank you for spending part of your day with me, and 2, I'd love to ask you if you would take 30 seconds, maybe 60, to leave a rating and review in your podcast app before you tap out today. If you've already done that, it's amazing. Please send me a screenshot so I can thank you personally, and know that sharing this episode with a friend has the same magical powers, and I deeply appreciate both. Also, in case you're listening to the end to see if I ever actually introduce myself, hi! My name is Nikki Elledge Brown. I'm the host and author of Naptime Empires and this here On Her Terms podcast. You can find me around the internet at Nikki Elledge Brown in most places, but what you may appreciate most is actually over at onherterms.com. It's what I call the insider library. It's where you can get inside scoop, first listen rights, email updates every time there's a new episode, and then special insider only bonus content. It's all over in our private feed. Okay, that's a wrap for real. I'll meet you in the next episode.